Hey, crypto pirates, welcome to your Discourse Syndicates, chatting with the Captain. I am the Captain, RG3. Gonna bring you some more Hexican talent. It's been like a rock star last few weeks. We first had Trevor Sarver from The Wedding. We had Head from Korn. And now tonight we're going to have Scott Foster Harris, and he was with LA Guns and a bunch of other bands. So we're going to talk about that. First, I'm just going to make a public apology. I'm going to narc on myself because I was researching a different rock star Hexican that they almost look identical. And you know who I'm talking about out there in London, my friend. And I was like getting ready for this interview. And then I looked at the names. I'm like, oh, he must just have a different Twitter name or something. And this is tripping me out. And then I looked at the picture today and I was like mortified because it was the wrong freaking Hexican. Scott is not the same Hexican that I was thinking I was bringing on the show. So anyway, I'm narking on myself and saying that Captain fucked up, but this is going to be a cool interview because LA Guns and all of those bands back in the day where I did my running around with too, at the Whiskey a Go-Go and the Rainbow and all those cool places, the Acid Test. I just name all kinds of crazy, nasty places out in LA that these bands all played in, and I just hung because I was working at a radio station at the time, and music was my thing, and just the big party scene down there. But anyway, let's say hello to the chat room real quick with who's all in here. By the way, Hexicans, we had a great week last week. Now we launched. They launched not Hedron. Icosa, and it went well. And now we're seeing another little correction. But what a week it has been. So if you guys got your Hedron stakes in and your Icosa in and minted all that stuff and had some gains, good on you. Good on you. For those of you who didn't, you missed out on some free money. But those of you who sold your Hedron for Hex, it's really 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Maybe, but there might be some upside to this Hedron Icosa ecosystem. Let me say hello real quick to Hex Hodl. You were number one in the room. Appreciate you, brother, coming in. Crypto Heartbeat. Whoa, look at that. We've got royalty in already. Iron Hex. David Morales, OG. Hey, again, any of you Hexicans ever out in the East Coast, you need a party, you want to party with a Hexican, David Morales is the man. He is the freaking party man. So David Morales, always fun to hang out with. Iron Hex, let's fucking go. Hexander, Tea Time, Mayo, Crispy, what's happening, everybody? Hex Phoenix, T-Bird, my wingman in the Twitter spaces. Mayo, another legend. Let's see, Crypto Ewok, Sandpip Chowdhury. Freaking these names, man. It's like you guys put this stuff up there just to trip me up. BC in the Matrix, and Almerilos. Welcome. Hey, there's Children of the Grave. Where the hell have you been, dude? My chat room has been a mess since you've been gone. Where you been? Huh? Jeez, man. And I they are hanging way further down and to the left. Yes. So anyway, hey guys, without any further ado, I'm going to bring up our rock star that I absolutely know nothing about other than the fact that he was with LA Guns and now apparently he's a Hexican, and I'm going to get to know him a lot better now, and we're going to bring him up. Scott Foster Harris of LA Guns, guys.
How are you, good sir?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Hey, man, we made it. We made it happen.
We did. And again, my apologies to you, but this is
know,
going to be cool because now we can discover.
It kind of worked out all right. I used to live in Europe, so we're halfway there. Ish.
So more excuses ish.
Yeah. Touche, sir.
Right on. So tell me a little bit about you before we get into the whole crypto thing. Where you come from, and kind of like your step into music and stuff. Where'd that all come from for you?
Dude, originally from Texas.
Okay.
Lived a long time in LA, of course, in Nashville and Vienna, Austria, where
one thing I was really surprised about all of the like different music genres that like Nashville is where you're at.
Oh,
You know,
dude,
I always thought, you know, Nashville
everything.
country and all that stuff, but like
Used to be.
you, Trevor, you guys are all like living down there. My cousin, he lives down here. He's a big music guy.
Yeah.
But it's like Motown people, rock people, you name it. They're all down in Nashville.
Name it, and they're there, man. That's probably, of all the places in the world, and there's a handful of places where if you go there, they have the best musicians. But of them all, probably the chameleon of them all would be Nashville. You know, the sheer amount of ungodly talent in that city at any given moment is just silly.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that it's like you want any musician whatsoever. There's like pros down there. Yeah.
Best of the best.
Songwriters, studio technicians, you name it. It's like the best of the best are in Nashville.
Yeah, man. Dude, I love my time there, and I would have stayed, but I just, you know, some opportunities opened up for me in the rock world, and in order to participate in that, I had to go to LA, and so
if you want to participate in the with the big boys, you end up in that nasty place that's called LA.
real thing. And you know, it's funny, man. Whenever we would tour, we toured all over the world for many, many years and had a really good time doing it. But, you know, half the places we would play, the bands that would open for us, I would just think to myself, you know, they're better than we are. Like, why are they opening for us? And the reason for that is we were in the right city, and we just had the right connections and just knew the right people. You know, these kids all over the world be asking me, what do we got to do to make it? And it's like, back then, at least, the answer was probably got to go to LA or New York, you know, or London or Nashville, depending on your music. But now it's not so much the case anymore. I mean, now you can kind of have, like, look at us. We're connecting and we're on different sides of the country at the moment, you know, and so people can make stuff. They can make their dreams come true, if you want to use that adage, from anywhere in the world. All you need is a really solid internet connection. And I don't necessarily know how to do that, but a lot of people do, and they're showing us that you can be anywhere on the planet and it'd be extremely relevant. Whereas, you know, 10 years ago, you couldn't do that. It wasn't nearly the same.
Yeah, it's extremely cool how relevant, you know, normal people without access can become now. Because like you said, you know, back in the day, you had to, if you're a rock star, you had to go to LA. You had to play at the Rainbow. You had to play at the Whiskey. You had to be in that scene, and you had to be with all the people down there.
And it was fun.
It was fun, but it's hard. It's hard.
Destructive.
You know, because it's destructive, and it's and it chews people up and spits them out too. Because
it does, man.
It's not easy to live in Southern California, you know, especially on a rock star salary, you know.
Yeah, which is either a lot or absolutely nothing. One of the two, you know. You're in the top 0.1% and you're just rocking, or you're at the bottom 99.9%, you know, trying to find girlfriends just so you have a place to stay.
Exactly, man. I've seen so many of them do it. You know, I was born and raised here in Southern California. So just by nature of being here, I know how to survive in California. Plus I have a support system. You know, I had a you know, family here and there that can pick me up off the streets and stuff every once in a while. But if you don't have that, you're fucked, man. Yeah. You're like, that's why a lot of people turn tail and head back home.
True.
But it's also what has created this disgusting cesspool that is LA, because everybody from everywhere with a dream that gets broken, destroyed, chewed up, and spit out is on the streets of LA. Like, those aren't native Californians out there. Those are people from all over the world that came out here to try and make it. And most of them ended up destitute or with bad drug habits and end up on our streets. And that city is destroyed because of it.
That's right. They were drawn there by the fake allure propagated by Hollywood, propagated by the whole media establishment, the whole entertainment establishment. And they watch these movies and they think, wow, that's how LA is. You know, everybody's somebody. There's beaches everywhere, and everyone's rich, and there's opportunity everywhere. And that is not the case, man. That city, unfortunately, because there's a lot of great people there too. I have a lot of wonderful friends there still, but the majority of people that go there for any length of time it really chews up their soul, and you can feel it just when you get to about Bakersfield, when you're driving in and you get a couple hours out, you can just feel that
feel the difference.
Curtain of negativity and desperation just emanating throughout that whole like Southern California place, that whole vibe.
Yeah, man, it's not an easy place to come and try and plant your stakes and set up a house and roots and stuff. It's not.
It's a tough place to live. It's still great to go there to get stuff done for meetings for a weekend or something.
Yeah.
Or hop in the studio for a week if that's where you're recording, even though you don't really have to record there anymore. But to live there, man, it's a different ball game. At least for me. Not everybody's like that though. Some people love it.
Yeah, it's a tough deal. All right, so let's get back to your career and how it started.
So I'm from Texas, and before I was a musician, I was in rodeos. I was a bull rider. Believe it or not.
You're shitting me.
No, real thing. I didn't have long hair. It was all cut off. It was all.
You rode a fucking bull?
Yeah, that's what I did. But
okay. So like I've always, I see all these extreme sports and shit, and I always thought that the most ridiculously stupid fucking thing in the world was for a guy to get up on one of those damn things, strap his hand, tie himself to this thing, and then kick it in the nuts and open the gate and see what it's going to do to you. What the hell are you guys thinking, man?
Adrenaline, bro. We were young, needed the money, enjoyed the lifestyle, and it was a different lifestyle. I'm a very,
the chicks dig you, right?
They did.
Okay, that's cool. But you found a better chick magnet.
Not because of me, just because I guess a certain type of girl's attracted to a certain type of violence, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. And that was that. After high school, after football, there's a lot of dudes, at least back then in Texas, that were needing. Now there's MMA, and so a lot of people go into the fight game just because it helps get that adrenaline up. But it really wasn't a thing back then for me, at least. And so that it just happened to be the arena that I stumbled into. I still needed that.
It's a rite of passage, man, and that's something that young men don't have anymore, because you got to do something with that young testosterone, man. And whatever does it for you, like in a native tradition, we have things that outlets, but and I think in Western culture, we don't really have a serious outlet for young men and their adrenaline rush and their testosterone deal, because if you don't have that rite of passage, man, it just, you can make that thing go into really bad places. That feeling that you get.
Yeah, it'll take you to some really, really negative and dark places. Yeah. Yes. That's what that was the purpose that the whole rodeo thing served for me. It was once football was over, that's kind of how that's how I got my kicks. I need in order to
get. Did you get out of it without any damage? I mean, is there damage?
No. Oh yeah, I was injured all the time. I wasn't super good at it. I would have been I would have had a much shorter career if I actually continued to pursue it. But the virtue of that is the injuries that I sustained, and specifically the last one, got me into music. That's how I learned to play guitar. I just was kind of fooling around, just passing the time while I was healing. I had a big cast on.
So it was an arm thing?
Yeah. I got tied up, which means you talked about the rope that we tie ourselves to. We don't necessarily tie ourselves to. We wrap it around in such a way that we can release and it can explode off any chance we want. But when someone gets tied up, due to the amount of rosin and sometimes glycerin, which we used to use, but mainly rosin, the glove gets really sticky and the rope gets really sticky. And sometimes if the rope isn't tight enough due to the bull, whenever we're tightening the rope, due to him pressing his body out, we get the rope as tight as we can. But as he starts bucking, sometimes he'll suck in. And so there's a lot of slack rather, that manifests in the rope. We didn't get it as tight as we wanted it to. And so sometimes our hand will actually turn over, and whenever we get bucked off, and when that happens, we can't release and then get thrown off. We try to release, but we can't. Our hand's stuck. We can't move, and so some of those video reels you see when the bull's spinning around, the dude's flying in the air like a helicopter. He's hung up, and that's not the way that the apparatus is designed. But that's what happens when mistakes are made, and I got tied up. Or I got hung up on a bull in Kaufman, Texas, actually. and broke a bunch of carpals, messed up the wrist really bad. And so I had this big cast on with my thumb just kind of sticking out like that. Everything else was cat. And, you know, once the pain had subsided enough, I just kind of learned to play guitar with my thumb just because I was bored. And dude, I'm like, this is it. This is me. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I maybe rode 20 times after that, maybe. And they were kind of just for shits and giggles. I started touring Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana, and then moved to Nashville. That's how it all got started.
I'm glad you got out of that, because I knew a guy who blasted his head up against the bull's head, and shattered the whole front section of his head out, and had a big steel plate in his forehead because the bull had shattered all of his bones from a headbutt.
Happens, man. Happens all the time. Nowadays, we don't see that anymore because they have all the bull riders. I don't know if it's
I see them have helmets.
They have helmets on with face masks like a hockey goalie. So that same type of incident, while there are still incidents that can and do happen, the type that you just explained doesn't really happen nearly as much because, you know, they have safeguards against that now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're out of it. Let's talk about the cool. So you're playing guitar with your thumb.
Yeah.
You start touring with the band at that time, or what?
No, it was just me. I was just going around bars in Texas because I knew a bunch of folks at bars and Opry's and things like that because of the rodeo days. You know, we would tour everywhere and would always go to bars afterwards. Yeah, that was kind of it. That was the lifestyle, the culture, and we were always up to no good back then. But I knew a lot of bar owners and stuff, and so I was like, "Hey, man, got to come sit in the corner and play." And they were like, "Yeah, come on, man. I'll give you $50 and all you can drink." And it was like that for a while, and then I started playing like proper music venues, I guess, for people trying to cut their teeth and figure out what's what. And those are called Opry's, which is kind of where amateurs go. And there's like a night where a bunch of amateurs get together and there's like a show that's put together. So it's like a professional theater show, but just not with professionals, just with amateurs. And so I did that for a bit to acquaint myself with the proper way of doing things, I guess. And then I was like, all right, done, out. Let's go to Nashville and see what we can do. That was the plan.
Nice. And so is that where you got into your first band, was in Nashville?
Yeah. Well, you know, I started as a songwriter. You mentioned songwriting earlier. I got lucky. I got really lucky in music during my life. And I just kind of stumbled into the right situations a couple of times. And the first time was I went into the Bluebird. I used to go to the Bluebird all the time, that's a cafe in Nashville where all of the country music and some of the classic rock songwriters would go and hold songwriter nights. So you have 3 or 4 world-renowned songwriters on any given night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every night of the week. And they would just sit there and they would, you know, they'd play their song acoustically and they'd tell a story about it. So it was a really intimate experience with the guy that actually wrote the song, which is always cool. And I didn't know anybody of note. And I was just, a kid trying to make something happen. And I would go to the Bluebird every night. And I would try to, after the shows, I would try to talk to all of the songwriters that were there. And, 99 of them were like, screw off, kid. Like, they didn't say it that way, but they did it very politely. Like, yeah, my agent or my manager, or, yeah, I don't really write with anybody anymore. Or, I have my set writers and that's it. Or, a whole bunch of different excuses. But I knew if I kept pushing, eventually somebody might take interest. And sure enough, somebody did after like 100 strong rejections. And his name was Harley Allen, and one of the world's greatest songwriters in country. And he kind of became my mentor, almost like a dad to me. And I just got lucky, persistence. I was watching.
Well, you did. And persistence and consistency and persistency pays off. If you're smart enough to know where you need to go and network. I mean, networking is so important. And, being in those places where people are a little looser versus trying to get into an office or something like that. But being in a place where people are like, hey, everyone's just kind of chill. We're playing some songs, we're eating some food, we're drinking some brews or whatever. Yeah. And eventually, you're going to get, all the no's, all the go away kids and all that kind of stuff. But eventually someone's going to see you. Somebody's going to see something in you, and they're going to put that hand out and give you a hand up versus a hand out. And
real thing.
make things happen for you. I can't say how. See, that's what happened to me in radio was. I was out driving a truck and I went to this event that they were doing at a radio station. I just pulled in and sat down and was talking to people because I was always like, Hollywood just really intrigued me. I even being a kid from out here, I was always I was in the Olympic Auditorium. I was in the old punk rock days when punk was first coming out in the 70s.
Oh yeah, man. Wow.
And I hung out down in Defenders Ballroom and all the Suicidal Tendencies and you name it, all the local LA bands. I hung out down there wanting to get involved in stuff. And so anyway, I go to this radio station gig and I sit down, I start talking to these people and happen to be the producer. And she's like, you got a lot of fire. She goes, I can use an intern like you. Is that something you'd be interested in? I said, oh, hell yeah, I'd love to. And she said, well, show up at 5 o'clock in the morning down in Burbank at the studio, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, all right, done. Now I lived in Orange County. I was 50 miles away from LA.
Trek.
Trek. It was 5 a.m. I was a young kid. She's like, this guy ain't gonna show up. So I got there and I snuck in the building because they had, security and shit. And so I'm waiting there in front of the studio door. She opens the thing. I was like, holy shit, how did you do that? I said, I just, did this and that. And she's like, okay, well, you're hired. Get in here. And that was that started my whole radio career.
Word.
And, I ended up, helping produce the Kevin and Bean morning show on K-Rock. And,
man.
And then I was a promotions guy. And that was my demise, was promotions, because, as from, being touring, all the radio station guys that are promotions guys end up in the green rooms, hanging out with all the bands and they got to entertain them and in all kinds of different ways. And before you knew it, that was my demise,
Yeah, I feel you.
But that was how I got into the biz myself, but had to get out. I had to get out.
I hear that too. That's kind of the reason, whenever I left the Guns, that was in 2014, I think.
Oh, you were with them for a long time.
Might have been 2013. Well, I didn't join them until I did the first thing with Tracy in 2009. And so just a few years there. But
okay, so you're there for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but we did another band simultaneously at the same time called the League of Gentlemen. But I think it was 2014 or it might have been 2015. But Tracy got a big gig, and Tracy's a guitar player, Tracy Guns.
Yeah.
Got a big gig in Vegas. They're raiding the Rock Vault, the big big show where they get a bunch of the founders of a bunch of big bands, and they put on a big show, big rock show. And so that was kind of like the end of our touring for a while. He signed a year agreement. He'd have been crazy not to, because they paid him a stupid amount of money. And I just thought, man, I've always wanted to go live in Europe, and I need to get out of LA. Have to leave here. And so I'm going to go. And I went,
So let's back up
and
talk. So you're in Nashville. You get hooked up with one of the greatest songwriters in Nashville at the time.
Yep.
And so where did your career go from there?
So I we started writing songs, and I ended up getting signed with Amelace Entertainment, a big publisher out there. And I became a staff writer, a songwriter. So I was writing songs just like he was for other artists. And by virtue of that, I started meeting a lot of A&R guys when A&R guys were a very important thing. I don't know if they're important anymore, probably to a certain extent, but back then they still were material. They were tangibly important. But I started talking with Universal South as an artist deal. I did the songwriting thing there for a year and a half or so, and just kind of started writing rock, and it wasn't like a conscious, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to write rock instead, or like bluesy psychedelic type stuff. It was just a transition that kind of took place without me even really being aware of it. You look at the last 20 songs you wrote and you're like, that sounds like the 60s or something. That's weird. And then just as by virtue, once again, there's a band out there. They were called Bombshell Crush, great band. And a handful of the guys had broken off, and they were starting a new band called 77 and asked me if I wanted to sing for them. I was like, sure do, would love to. And we had a good time. We recorded a few songs, had some fun. Band didn't work out, but I fell in love with the idea of not having to fool around with a guitar, not having to really do anything, just grab the microphone and jump around on stage and be the front man. And I loved it. I'm like, this is it. And so I put together a band in Nashville called Zen Rising with the Z. And dude, I loved that band. That was my baby. That was my child. We were like psychedelic blues, hard hitting rock, like Zeppelin meet the Doors type of a vibe. We had the weird Doorsy thing, but the punch of Zepp. I loved it. That was my band. And I thought, and we started having a little bit of success out there. And we had a lot of play on that particular radio station, but it was only one. And there were some managers or a manager in particular that enticed us to go to LA, to move to LA. And so I took the rest of the money that I had from songwriting and bought an RV, an old it was like a 91 or 92 40-foot Fleetwood Bounder and a Yukon and a bunch of gear, and just, spent everything we had and loaded it up and just drove it out to LA. We broke down like 4 times on the way. Yeah, it should have taken us 3 days max, and it took us 2.5 weeks to get there. Just could break it down. We all became mechanics along the way. We had to figure out how to fix this thing. What's that fluid? What does that mean?
Did you guys have to barter across, or you had enough to get across?
We made it, man. But this is the crazy thing. We towed the Yukon behind us, and you'll appreciate this because you know the landscape and the terrain really, really well. We didn't know what we were doing, man. And when we managed to get to LA, when we managed to get
with your Bounder and your Yukon into,
we finally somewhere around I forget where we were. Maybe Flagstaff. We finally took the Yukon, unhooked the Yukon because it was just getting unmanageable. We did it to save gas, and it probably ended up costing us way more. But when we got to LA, we didn't know what we were doing. So we were like, well, let's go to the beach. Like, all right. How do we get there? We asked some people, and I don't even know where we were, but like, how do we get to the beach? And they were like, well, probably from here, the closest way is we were on the 101. They're like, just go down this way and you'll see Topanga Canyon.
Oh shit.
It's on the other side of Topanga Canyon. We thought, all right.
Head to Malibu.
Bro.
With a Bounder.
We drove a 40-foot Fleetwood Bounder with no brakes up and down Topanga Canyon. And like, I mean, we weren't talking, like we were like the whole time. And people
die up there regularly in sports cars.
It was so scary, but we couldn't stop. Like the brake was on, I was driving, the brake was on the metal, and we were just going. Like, I hope nothing happened. Oh my, it was insane.
That's crazy.
We finally made it there, and we got on.
And then there's nowhere to park the damn thing.
Nowhere to park. We ended up pulling. We drove down a handful of miles, and further west on the 1, I guess is what it was, PCH. Yeah. And we turned off. It was getting dark. It was getting really dark, and we kind of just turned off into what we thought we couldn't really see, and what we thought was just like a little road. So we just parked on the side of the road, and it was a park. When we didn't know that. And it was, we didn't know where we were, what we were doing. It was 10 o'clock at night. We sat there for a few hours, and finally there's like banging on the door, and there's a guy out there screaming at us, you can't be here, with a flashlight. And this bunch of cops come to see what this Fleetwood Bounder's doing and sitting in a park. Oh, dude, it was crazy. But we figured it out. Time went by. We figured it out. We ended up hooking up at a RV place there on further down south of Santa Monica in Venice. Yep, for a couple weeks, and then ended up getting a really awesome lady to let us lease her driveway up in Northridge in the valley. So like that was our start.
There you go.
You know, and you know, we were all young. We destroyed the RV, brother. We destroyed it. We played there. We ended up becoming the house band for the Whiskey, kind of like the Doors did. Loved the Doors. Played all those places for a year and just completely.
That's the rock star like lifestyle. I mean, that's like that's the dream you would see. That's how it really happens. I mean, and then you become the band at the Whiskey. It's like,
yeah,
you made it. You did the whole thing, bro. You did the whole thing. You went to Nashville. You came across the country in an RV. You barely made it. And then you're at the Whiskey. I mean, that's fucking hats off, dude.
We were still 100% broke, but we were having a really good time. And I'm a different person now than I was then, thankfully. But yeah, you know, we were just doing what young dudes who don't know any better do, playing in a rock band.
Yep.
But man, you know, we had a lot of regional success with that band. Was then had a lot of fun. Got some awards. Got to go to some award shows. All that good stuff. Do the red carpet thing a whole bunch, and the band just fell apart. You know, one of the guys in the band just kind of imploded. Just couldn't handle it, I guess. We were getting things going. Things were looking really good. And he just couldn't take it and imploded. And so we got a guy to replace him. But you know, when you're a band that's gone through that, it does, you know, it's not the same. It's not just necessarily the fact that the sound changed, because the sound did change, but it's the energy wasn't there. Like it was magic, for lack of a better term. And with the original cast. So we ultimately brought the first guy back because he said he got it together, and he didn't have it together, and imploded again. And that's when I think we all just kind of threw in the towel. And then that's when Tracy called me and asked me if I wanted. That's how I got the guns. Yeah.
That dude. What's crazy about it is, like, you know, how can you, when you're inside of the rock world and you're inside of seeing what bands go through and everything, and you see, you know, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll thing happening before your eyes, it's like, it's any wonder that any 4 or 5 guys can stay together doing anything in that environment and be successful at it.
Agreed.
You're gonna have one person at least implode. At least.
Yeah. You're 100% right.
And that's why most bands don't ever make it, or you don't see them again. You just don't know that inside story of that guy or two that imploded, you know, or all of them, you know. And the ones that are still around, it's like, you know, they just worked through those problems over and over and over again, or whatever.
They're like, you know, especially when you're young and you don't know any better and ego's still a thing.
Yeah.
That just ruins bands, that ruins businesses, that ruins relationships, that ruins endeavors of all walks of life. Ego, you know, and it's not till you get older that you just realize how useless
it is.
It is. Well, at least for me, it was nothing, but it served no purpose other than a destructive force. And with everybody that I've known where ego comes into play, it's very off-putting. And it just gets in the way, and it clouds your decision making. So when you look at a particular situation, whether it's a cast for a band, or which members to use for a band, or a particular business opportunity, or this idea or that idea, the ego clouds the judgment, and you're not able to look at something analytically, or you're not able to analyze it effectively, rather, and your emotions end up making decisions, and that's usually not the right one.
And it stops the team from being productive and effective and successful, because the one thing I learned a long time ago in the Marine Corps, what they do in the Marines is when you go into boot camp, they break you down physically, emotionally, mentally. They break you down to an amoeba. You are nothing for the first. You don't sleep for the first 2 days. They take everything from you. They teach you how to walk and talk first. Like, the only thing that you can do in there without any help is breathe.
Wow.
Everything else, they teach you how to go to the fucking bathroom. They teach you how to walk. They teach you how to talk. They teach you how to start becoming a new human being. So they break you down the first couple of weeks you're there, and all of your ego disappears, because now you're at the mercy of the team. You're part of this team, your platoon that you're in. And they teach you that in Marine Corps boot camp. And it's the most effective form of brainwashing known to man today is Marine Corps boot camp, because they destroy who you are, and they slowly build you back up brick by brick of how they want you to be. And then they start, of course, making a killing machine is what they do.
Yeah.
But that's what the Marine Corps is these men and the first thing they take from you is that fucking ego. Any human being that's in there that still has an ego after the first couple of weeks, you're gone. They don't want that. They want a human being that has been whitewashed.
Wow.
So that they can start molding you to their desired design, but what it did is it showed me how useless my ego was and how important other human beings are. And their skills and how their skills, their talents, their abilities affect me and my success, and how my skills, the talents and abilities can help them, and how we can become a team, and like you said, you don't see that in a lot of young men, especially in that atmosphere where egos are being inflated versus destroyed.
Yeah. They're being nurtured.
Yes. Yes. So it's hard. It's a surprise to me that anything ever gets done or there is ever a successful band or human being that comes out of that system.
Yeah.
One of the coolest people I ever met was Iggy Pop.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
I never met him. I would have loved to.
Dude, cool. He was amazing. He is just an amazing human being. He's physically fit like nobody's business. The guy is shredded, man. He's shredded. I mean, he's 4 foot nothing. I mean, he's just like this little tiny guy, but he's absolutely just shredded and has a philosophy and a mindset, like just a really cool guy, and I've met a lot of the people, but just hearing like people that have been successful in the industry for so long, you just see that they don't have that ego thing. Even though they're bigger than life human beings, they just don't have that ego thing. Like Iggy didn't.
100% right. Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
All those at the
guys
top
out there, listen to the old timers and Sky here telling you, get rid of that fucking ego, man. Do everything you can to get rid of it, and you can be successful for the rest of your life. And it's something that you love doing.
Word. Yeah, you nailed it, man.
So before we, so then that's how you got. It's real quick, the LA gun story. So you're out there, you're in LA, your band is imploding a couple of different times. Yeah. And then you meet the guy that gets you into one of the big bands. Yeah.
Well, initially Tracy knew me. He and I and Robbie Crane from Rat and Brian Tishy, who is now with Foreigner. He's been with Foreigner for the last I don't know, 7 years, maybe 6 years. Awesome dude. And a better guitar player than everybody. He's one of those guys. But we were going to do a Zeppelin tribute band called Shred Zeppelin. And we just never really materialized. We jammed a little bit, but we never actually got out and started jamming or actually playing out. Things happen. We get busy. And I think actually Robbie Crane went on tour and we brought in Phil Soussan on bass for a bit we made a video and that was it. We still never went out and played, but that's how he knew me from. And so after Zen, he called me and the guy singing for Guns at the time I think his name was Marty Casey, good dude out of Chicago. And there was, I don't know if there were issues there or if they were just parting ways amicably. I don't know. But he asked me if I wanted to come in and do the Guns thing. And while that was never my particular brand of music, I just thought, this is a cool opportunity. I like Tracy a lot. Yeah, I'll make some money and tour the world. I'll do that. Let's do it. Let's have some fun. And so we did that for a while. And we did. We had a lot of fun. And got along great. The other guys in the band were great. In the very beginning, it was Chad Stewart on drums. And then Donnie Gray came in and was the drummer after that. Both great dudes. Johnny Martin, who's their current bass player, he played bass almost the entire time that I was there. There's been a lot of members that have come and gone out of that band.
Yeah.
And so we had a really good time touring the world for a while. And Tracy wanted to do, his heart really is in the 60s. and maybe like the first half of the 70s. That's really the kind of musician he wants to be. That's really where his heart's at. If left to his own devices, you know, he would be Jimmy Page. Okay. And he wanted to make a band with that kind of vibe. So we created a band called the League of Gentlemen, and made a couple of records. Had a great time doing it. And as soon as he got the gig in Vegas and I moved to Europe, you know, we made one more record while I was living in Europe. So we recorded that whole thing remotely. So they did all the music in LA, and I cut the majority of the vocals in Vienna, and flew back to LA for some videos, photo shoots, and to cut a few more of the vocals there. But yeah, that was kind of my introduction to, like, we can kind of just record anywhere we want to, as long as the gear is good and the guys know what they're doing. We don't really. There is magic in having everybody in one room and going for it and just nailing it. There is magic to that you can't replicate. But a lot of the time you can get away quite easily with, you know, recording the guitar here and the bass and the drum. Maybe the rhythm section is over here and the vocals are done another day in another studio. Yeah. You can get away with that now, whereas you really couldn't in the past.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, man.
That's cool. The industry has changed and it's morphing in cool ways.
Yep.
So League of Gentlemen recording now, you're still kind of, it's hands on, hands off kind of stuff. How do you get into crypto?
I got into crypto at the beginning of this year.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't really know anything about it. Since I've moved over, I've kind of became a session musician, and that's what I do. Like, my main thing right now, I just record here in the house. This is what I do. I record stuff for people all over the world, which is neat. It's super cool. So, but I got COVID over Christmas, and I was, you know, it hit me hard for whatever reason, or I guess I should have said Charlie. I'm not supposed to say that word. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. They were going to cancel us. They would have a long time ago.
Right on.
We've done everything on this show. You name it. Some stuff that I don't even like to talk about. And, we've done it, and they haven't shut us down yet. So.
We can
thanks, you too. Appreciate
it. Well, I was, you know, I had the cough there for a while, and when I was coming out of it, I was watching a lot of YouTube because I was bored. I couldn't really do anything, and I kept getting this particular video recommended to me, and I can't quite remember what it was called, but I remember the tagline, and it was like, billionaires making people rich, or something along those lines. I bet a lot of the people watching know exactly the video I'm talking about. And it was Richard sitting in a chair talking with the woman. She was interviewing him for an hour, or it might have been 2 hours. And this was before, you know, he was very well presented. He wasn't doing any outrage things yet. And I just, you know, the moment that I heard him talk, I didn't know anything about anything in regards to crypto, but I heard this man talk, and sometimes you just have an intuition where you're like, I need to listen to this, because I don't know anything about the subject about which he's speaking, but I know that he knows everything about the subject that he's speaking about. And I need to hear what he has to say. And so I listened to the whole interview, and I just thought, you know, towards the beginning, you know, I heard, my crypto that I created 2 years ago has gone up 1,000,000% so far. And I was like,
the hell?
I was like, I rewound it. I'm like, he said 1,000,000%, 1,000,000%, 10,000x. That was the first thing that caught my ear, of course. And so I watched the whole thing, and then I just started binge watching him. I started binge watching Richard and just absorbing all these things he was saying. And I would watch him in debates, just decimate people, just make them look like fools. And I'm like, you know, I realized this man knows what he's talking about. And I believe him. I believe what he's saying. I believe that he genuinely wants the things that he says he wants. I believe that he genuinely wants to help people. I believe that he genuinely wants what's best for us. I believe that he genuinely wants glory for being the best guy in crypto. And I believe genuinely that he can do it. And so I just watched everything that I could about him. And, and this was somewhere around maybe January 10th. So just a handful of days, I'm just crushing Richard Hart stuff. And I'm like, okay, he talks a lot about pulse X. What's that? So I start diving into pulse X. I learned about the sacrifice. And I say to myself, all right, how do I do that? I want to do that. I'm going to do that right now, today. Of course, I couldn't. I had to fight with centralized exchanges a lot, Coinbase, Binance, all that nonsense. Try to get my money off, in there, out of there, onto a MetaMask that I had to set up, the whole nine. I just took a crazy hardcore crash course over the course of a week in everything crypto. And I just kind of had to wait it out until they would release my funds. And I did not get the best sacrifice rate for PulseX at all, but I got a sacrifice rate, and that was important to me. And I think when I averaged it all out, and I had to do it just in little bits because they would only release my funds in little bits. And I think it's somewhere around like maybe 5,000 or 6,000 or something. So right above midway, but I certainly didn't get 10,000 points for a buck, but would have loved to. Then I learned about Pulse Chain, and my heart was broken that I missed that. And really, so it was PulseX that I first got involved with. And then I spent a month learning everything that I could. And it was then that I learned, or I realized, the game-changing invention that is Hex. I absorbed everything I could about T-shares, about the share rate. I was very attracted initially to the concept of immutability. I was like, that sounds like a good thing. That's better than something being able to be changed. I was really drawn to the idea, the concept of no admin keys. I was like, that sounds like a great thing. If I'm going to be into crypto, that sounds like one that I'd want to be in. No admin keys. Old Toots McGee over there can't change it if he wanted to. It's in the code. And every new facet of Hex that I learned about, I became more and more infatuated with it. And I realized this is an absolute game changer. I didn't know that I was looking for crypto, but I think I didn't know that I was looking for it. But when I found it, I knew that I had found everything that I had ever looked for in terms of a financial instrument, everything that I didn't know I was looking for. And I'm like, I'm in, I wish I would have been in 2 years ago, like you guys, but dude, I'm in now. And so I don't have the best seat on the plane, but bro, I got a seat on the plane, and that plane's going to, we're going to Mars, man. We're on a rocket ship.
It's so cool to hear. It's so cool to hear that story because, like your story coming in and my story coming in are completely opposite, because I came in before Hex was invented, but the same thing applied, because so I'm in crypto and I'm jaded because I see scams everywhere. I'm in the deepest, darkest alleys of crypto, trading, watching people get put in jail, watching people scam out that are my friends, that are building cryptos, that are mining, that are doing all these things. I'm seeing all this stuff, like going, this is a shit show. This thing is a shit show. And then the refreshing voice of Richard Hart comes over the YouTube. And I'm like, wait a minute. Just like you said, I know I don't know everything, but I know that guy knows everything.
Yep.
I know he knows everything. And I know that he's schooling people. And no matter how hard these other people in crypto would tell him, no, you're wrong, he always had the right answer. And not only did he have the right answer, but I could read in his confidence and their confidence in what was being said, that they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, and that he had just wrecked them. Yep. And they didn't know how to react to it because they were some so-called crypto influencer, they were the pinnacle of something. And then he tore them down in one argument, and they didn't know how to react to it. And I could see that in their face. I could see it just didn't just go pale, that they had just been destroyed by this man, and how real and right he was.
Yep.
And that's what attracted me. And then, of course, the first thing, as you start looking at Hex, you see this T-share thing and you go, wait a minute, that's where the magic is in there. There's magic in that T-share. Somehow, some way there's magic, and I got to figure it out. I got to understand it. And that was the first thing we did on these streams was we were diving into the T-share and what it was and unpeeling that. And I didn't have any idea.
Wow.
But once you find out what it is, then you're like, this is earth-shattering, world-changing finance right here. This is true DeFi. This is the nucleus of something great that can be. And that's when you go all in. And that's what I did. I was all in, and then Pulse Chain and Pulse X and
bro, man,
from the beginning.
10 years from now, or maybe even, how we right now, a lot of the community watches streams, like for example, with Jack Levin, whom I like a lot, the Google, employee number 21, I think.
Yeah.
We watch him on his streams and we're like, wow, 1999, early 2000s. And we hear the stories of how, of the ground guys on Google who built that world. You're going to be on those streams 10 years from now. People are going to be like, wow, this is one of the OGs that helped build the Hex world. How cool is that? Just to think about.
It's an honor and extremely cool.
Hex is Google. It's even bigger than that, I think, in the grand scheme of things. It changes everything on so many levels.
Oh,
how exciting is that? But you're going to be one of those guys. There's going to be all you OGs are all going to be, the Jack Levins of the next 15 years. People are going to be looking back on you, writing books about you.
Well, they've made a movie about some of us already.
Yeah, man.
That's coming out pretty soon, so that'll be interesting to see. But no, it's been an honor and a privilege to be able to be as big a part of this as I have been. And,
Word.
And I don't take that for granted, and that's why I continue, because I could walk away and walk off into the sunset and not have to worry about any of this stuff anymore, because I make no money on YouTube. I don't make any money off of Hexicans. It's not what I've done. It's not what my bank account, everything that all of my, I'm a normal guy. I've got a couple of houses here in Southern California. So I've worked my whole life, 30 years in the field. So I've done pretty well. I've done decent. But I can just walk away. But one of those sayings that always hits me is, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Word.
And
Agreed.
I want to do that, because in order for the world, in order for the Hex to get as big as you and I know it is, there has to be people shouting out at the rooftops about what this is. We have to be telling people and directing them to what this is. We have to market. And so that's why I'm going to keep doing it, continue doing it, make this my rest of my life's work at whatever
that's great
level it will be. I know sometimes I'm going to need to take a break and I'm going to need to stay away a little bit, and but I'm never going to stop giving back to the Hexican community, because so much has been given to me. That's how I see this thing.
I think that's great. I think that people, for lack of a better way of putting it, people need shepherding if they're unaware of the landscape, of the terrain. And if we can provide that on whatever level we can, whether it's promotion, whether it's incredible alpha like whales, for example, whether it's humor, whatever we can do to help inform people and or make them aware, I think is paramount. I think you're quite literally saving people by doing that.
Yes.
It's so important.
Yeah. And that's my goal, is to help those guys. Like I worked in a field for 30 years in a machinery moving field, where these guys have worked their asses off and their tails to the bone, and they don't have a pot to piss in, and these guys don't deserve that. These guys helped build America, keep it running for the last, 50 years that I've been around. Yeah, so I think these guys deserve something better than a broken 401k, Social Security that's about to disappear. I mean, they deserve more than that. These guys that worked hard all their lives. Truly hard. This is something that could fix that.
I agree. 100%. I've told everybody that I know, Pulse Chain, ask me about it. Look it up. Talk to me about it. Ask me about Pulse Chain all the time. And some of them do. And I got them. I've onboarded a bunch of people that way. I'm even right now I'm helping people set up their wallets because, you know, they don't know anything like I didn't know anything just a few months ago. So I'm trying to teach them months of me figuring it out on YouTube, trying to teach them how to do it in a couple of weeks. And it's doable. I think it's getting easier with time, especially with this new Simplex onboard that we got, and people can just buy Hex with their credit card.
Yep. Very
But
nice.
I'm like,
and there's a lot more of that coming. There's a lot more on-ramps coming.
Yep, I totally agree. And I tell people every chance we get, whether it's somebody's birthday party from an old high school buddy or something like that, what are you into? What are you into? Well, I'm in crypto now. Oh, you mean like what that dog, like Dogecoin or like no, I'm in a real one. I'm in real crypto. It's called Hex and it's called Pulse Chain, and you need to get some right now. And that's what I was telling them a couple of months ago. Of course, Pulse Chain didn't come out, but I think that the people that have onboarded are aware of the fact, you know, we have to have the software's hard conversation all the time, but that's part of it. They need shepherding. You know, they don't know the terrain as well as we do now. And I like to think that I know it enough to be able to speak somewhat.
And it's delayed gratification. And we had that with Hex and Richard, he did the right thing. He said, hold on.
I think so.
And then boom, when he launched it, and guess what? Perfect, flawless, uninterrupted operation for over 2.5 years.
And I think that we can expect that exact same thing with Pulse Chain and Pulse X.
And that's why we've been waiting so long, because that's what he's doing. And I have the confidence that that's what he's doing.
I'm 100% cool with it. In fact, maybe it's masochistic of me, but at first I was confused like everybody else. But when I realized what this was, I thought to myself, man, if Hex keeps falling, I can get way more than I thought I ever could. And dude, that's what I've been doing. Like
buying the dips, man.
Whatever I get that's expendable, that I don't need for our lives. The wifey is awesome. The wifey's so much better than me at everything. But whatever I don't need for our lives, I go through Coinbase, I have to wait it out, and dude, I DCA. I mean, that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to continue to. And even though I'm enjoying this little relief rally, I'm still DCAing in the relief rally. I'm not waiting for it to come back down again. It might, and masochistically, I hope it does, because I'll just get more for what I have. But I'm not just going to sit there and hope that it does, because if it doesn't, man, I don't want to miss that train.
No,
I think about that every day, you know. So point was, I'm 100% cool with the delay. I think it's just going to make Pulse Chain that much better. It's going to make the whole thing that much better. And it allows me to get even more into Hex with what I got, you know? Yeah. And I've got a certain bag set aside specifically for Pulse Chain, or specifically for Pulse. So on day one, my strategy keeps changing. I miss the sacrifice. So I have to come up with a strategy. And so I think I'm going to go half in immediately, even as it's rising. I don't care. I need to know that I have a seat.
You know that you have a seat at the table.
I need that, man. And I'm going to hope that it comes back down so that I can DCA down with the other half. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And I'll just buy in, you know, at the top and whatever. It's in a year, all the prices that we buy in at now are going to be unimaginable, unattainable, and exceptional. I know that I just want to I want to maximize my coin count, but I have to. So I'm weighing that. How do I maximize my coin count with the risk of missing out? So, you know,
that's everybody's problem.
I know
you never know when, but having a strategy and sticking to it is the most important thing. And I think that, you know, and I've been in crypto from the beginning, not in it, invested in it, but I've seen it start from fruition. So when Bitcoin first came out, we were seeing it in our chat rooms, in the IRC chat rooms, and we were seeing people launch it, and they had in-game cryptos that they were talking about. So didn't pay much attention to it, but being in it for this long and seeing things happen, one of the things that I know is that usually when things launch, everybody FOMOs in early and it pumps, and then the early outers out and it dumps. I mean, it's almost like clockwork. And Hex did it. Richard warns everybody about it, and still people FOMO in day one and don't wait for a dip. So having a strategy to, yes, relieve that itch because you're afraid of missing out on that first initial punch, and then having some to, okay, now my better senses are getting me into the dip, and I'm going to buy in the dip and DCA down into the dip.
Yep.
Then, that's a good strategy to have, in my opinion, because
that's the best I can come up with. Yeah.
It's almost the best you can come up with. Now you may not be throwing the dice to say, okay, do I get all in when I first come in, or do I wait and get it all in and at the dip, so that there's that coin toss, which, some of the times you're right, some of the times you're wrong. And it sucks. Most of the time I'm wrong. So
it's a risk. It's such a risk. I feel like the way that I'm doing it, and instead of like spinning the wheel and calling red or calling black and just hoping that I'm right, I feel like the way I'm doing it, like every slot is red and black. So I'm going to win halfway no matter what.
Halfway no matter what. And that's better than losing one way, or,
Yeah, I think, yeah. So that's my plan, man. Because I think, winning 100% obviously is better than winning halfway, but losing 100% sucks. And I know that.
Yes.
I know what both of those coins are going to do, PLS and PLSX. I know what they're going to do. And it's going to be astronomical. For lack, at least with my simple mind, it's astronomical. And I want to be a part of that, even if it's only halfway, because halfway is still exceptional when compared to anything else.
You sacrifice for PulseX.
Yeah.
Just getting in that early in that product, even though it's the last product that came out, I'm telling you, in my opinion, from being on testnet and operating within the confines of it with PulseX, it's freaking amazing.
Buy and burn, bro. It's silly.
It is going to blow crypto traders' minds.
I know.
They are going to be all over this thing. Yep. And seeing the success of all the other DEXs that are out there, and then seeing what PulseX is, I mean, they are not going to be able to stay away from it. Mm-mm. I mean, this stuff is it is gonna be more important than heroin on the streets of LA, because that stuff is going to be eaten up like nobody's business. They're going to be all over that trading platform.
Yeah, they are. And the holders of Pulse, it's so beautifully designed. The game mechanics that went into that is just, man, there's one stroke of brilliance after another. And I don't know which one I'm more excited about. I don't know if it's PLS, PLSX. I know I've got my bag of PLSX. I'd like a bigger bag, but I have a bag. I've got to work to get the bag of PLS, but bro, I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful to be in on that, because Hex is Google, and I think Pulse Chain's Amazon. And we're going to be hearing stories about that in the next decade and a half. That it's the game, it's the new wave that changes the way the world works. Richard says it all the time. He says, Amazon's what percentage of it's over 50% of all the transactions that take place in America. Is that what the right number?
I think so.
Something along those lines. It's the majority of all retail in America.
Insane. And
Google is how we operate. People, 99% of people, 99.9% of people cannot operate without Google. And I think that Hex and Pulse Chain are that's the next generation of that. No, I'm not saying they're going to replace Google and Amazon at all. It's a whole different ballgame, different.
It's in the finance world. I mean,
in the finance world,
really like real money now. Hex replaces money is what it does.
Yes.
Fixes money. And then you have the exchange and the means of which to operate that exchange, and Web3 and everything. Pulse Chain is going to make Web3 viable. It makes it viable. So the world is ready for Web3. The world is creating Web3, but it doesn't have a chain that can function on properly.
Right. Without
Pulse Chain will give that to it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then you'll have the exchange, which is the world's greatest financial tool known to man.
Yep.
It really is. If you want to generate wealth, if you want to create advanced plans, and even early plans to make money on your money, Pulse Chain or PulseX is where it's going to be at.
Boom.
Because the yield generating tools on there are just phenomenal.
Have you ever daydreamed about your future self visiting you and saying, hey, Scott, or hey, RG3, invest in these stocks at these times, and I'll see you in 20 years. Trust me. Because I've definitely thought about that. And I feel like everybody that's in right now in Hex or Pulse or PulseX, I feel like we had that visit without having had the visit. I feel like that's the reality that we can expect in the coming handful of years. Maybe I'm wrong.
I believe you're right.
I think I have that. I have that feeling. And, you know, when you spend as much time studying all of this as I have, and there's so many others that are so much better than me at it, and you listen to them talk about it, and then you verify what they're saying, because anybody can say anything, but when you verify, you know, that's why everybody always says, do your own research. Do your own research. That way, you know, not because somebody says something, but because you've actually verified it for yourself. When you do that, you realize, or at least I realized, yeah, this is future Scott knocking on my door and with a bunch of gray hair and a big silver beard saying, invest in these stocks at these times in these years, and I'll see you down the road. And, you know, hopefully, you know, do sit-ups so you don't have a big belly like this. That's what I imagine. I imagine me, like the old me, I imagine me having like a belly. But yeah, that's what I think. Like, I'm like, man, this feels, for the first time in my life, I feel like I kind of got that visit without having gotten the visit. And I think everybody else that's in right now, that's watching this, or that spends time watching these streams, or that's in, or that intends on getting in the very beginning of any of these coins, I feel like they got that visit too. And it's really exciting.
It is. And I feel exactly the same way. That's why I've gone in as deep as I have with this, because, you know, it was one thing to be part of Hex and its birth and be there to uncover it and discover it and discard all the FUD. And when we did, we were like, wow, when the smoke cleared from launching Hex, it was like, he did it. He created the perfect crypto.
Wow. And
then when he said, okay, guys, the rest of crypto is getting left behind because we've got to fix the chain issue. And hey, how about we create the world's greatest, since the DEXs are shiny objects out here now in the DeFi space, let's make the greatest DEX out there. And let's make it really do things for your money. And when I saw him do that and I put Hex and those two things together, I said, he did it. Yeah. We need no more. And he said it a bunch of times. All we need is on-ramping now. And that's outside of crypto that we need to do that, you know? Right. So really he's gamed the whole crypto industry. He's destroyed all of them. He's created a whole new crypto space, because now we're not even crypto anymore. We're completely segregated from them.
Nailed it. Yeah, I agree.
We have no need to talk to them anymore. We have no need to fight with them anymore. We have no need to even compare ourselves to them anymore, because we are something completely different.
Agreed.
We are our own crypto.
Agreed.
Not even the same.
We're our own ecosystem.
That's it.
Yeah, man.
And it's going to destroy it, man. It's going to destroy it. All right. Hey, do you have a Hex song out that you just did or something?
I do. Yeah.
Would you mind playing it? I've got people asking you to play the song in the chat room.
Yeah, I can play that thing.
Right on. Here we go. All right. So I'm gonna do something cool here. I'm gonna put. Let's see here if I can make this happen real quick. Hold on a second. Why is this not doing it?
How am I gonna do this?
Yes. And this, and this.
Can you hear that? Or do I need to angle the microphone down a bit? I don't know if the compressor is gonna. Is that good? I think you might be muted.
Yeah. Okay. I thought maybe you could hear it. Yeah, it's good, man. It's not studio quality, but it's good.
Is that gonna work?
Yeah, that's gonna work. I'm gonna put you up on your own and let you do it.
Cool. All right, man. I had the C word. I had Charlie a second time a few weeks ago, and that's when I wrote this. Just cause I was excited. Well, I drifted off again at work, thinking about post change. And occasionally I think back to that twerk, Richard Hart bringing his game. Even though I missed the sacrifice 'cause I came too late, day one I'm still making it rain. I drifted off again at work, thinking about post change. Well, I woke up in a sweat last night, dreaming about post X. Won't be long before I'm going to bed, wearing a Rolex. There's so much to love about it, I can't pick my favorite. It's almost better than sex. I drifted off, woke up in a sweat last night, brothers and sisters, dreaming about post X. All right, very important here. If you want to be set up for life, you better stake your hex. Might as well start with 5, a financial suplex. Generational wealth is just a click away. It's a Nobel Prize worthy flex. If you want to be set up for life, you better stake your hex. A financial suplex, a Nobel Prize worthy flex. You better stake your hex.
That was fucking awesome, bro. Way to go, man. That was badass. That was
Thanks,
badass.
Man. Thanks, brother.
Cool, man.
Had a lot of fun writing it.
I bet you did. That was awesome. That was awesome. Everybody looks like they loved it, man.
Oh, right on, man.
Thank you so much for coming on, man.
It was an absolute pleasure, RG3, man. Thank you for having me.
No, man, the pleasure was mine. So, hey, the show, we went over a few minutes like usual when there's awesome guests.
Happens.
But I'm gonna call it a show. Anything you want to say to the Hexicans out there, or to regular people out there that aren't in Hex? Anything you want to throw out there last minute?
Yeah, man. You know what? Just some words of encouragement, because I know how, I experienced it too, how confusing it can be initially. When the price of Hex falls, when you buy up top or you buy halfway through, and it comes down to the levels that we're at now. Stay the course and don't get up. Don't let it wear you down, because all we can do at any given time is make the best decision that we can with the information that we have. And you guys who bought, whether it's at the very top or at the very bottom or anywhere in between, you did that. I think just buying it is the right decision. So stay the course. We'll be back above wherever you bought, no matter where that is. We'll be back above that, well above that in the very near future. So
you got that right.
Stay the course. Don't let it get you down. It is what it is. Enjoy the fact that you have the future of finance in your possession.
Damn right.
If you've got the funds, DCA. I mean, that's what I'm doing. All I can do is tell you what I'm doing. DCA and continue to DCA, because you're just going to be putting yourself in a better and better and better position the closer we get to launch.
Yep. And
So
always make sure that it's not more than you can afford to lose, guys, because crypto is volatile.
If the funds are there and you can invest and then forget that you've done it, why not?
No brainer.
Yeah, man.
Scott, thank you so much for coming on, bro. Appreciate you.
Brother.
Would you mind hanging out in the green room for a few minutes if you got time?
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. We'll chop it up in there for a minute. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the FN Hangout on Friday. Thanks for coming. We'll see you. Bye.